Ben, we've got to talk about Eberechi Eze, because this is a player that a lot of Arsenal fans still have on their wish list, despite the Gunners doing lots of business already. How likely is it, in your opinion, that this is a transfer that gets completed before the end of the window?
Yeah, I think Arsenal have held the talks on the Eze side, and they know that he's keen on the move. They view him more as a number 10, and then you have the option to use Eze or Noni Madueke on that left-hand side. But the feeling is outgoing is going to be as important as just bidding to Crystal Palace. And this is where there's a question mark with both extremes possible over Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard. On the one hand, they've both had outreach to sign a new deal. If the window shuts, you would think that Arsenal will ramp up efforts to tie them down. But with the window open, and even though they've had some positive talks with each player, maybe one of them could depart and it could open up the door. So I think Arsenal have got a big decision to make, because if one of those two leaves, they could pivot for a left-wing specialist. And this is where links throughout the window have come with Rodrigo, but he's expensive, or even Newcastle United's Anthony Gordon, or they go for a number 10, but does that stifle the development and opportunities of Ethan Nwaneri through the centre?
Clive, how keen are you on Eberechi Eze? And I guess the big question around him is, as Ben sort of touched on there, where does he fit in? He's not quite an out-and-out left winger. You feel like he'd be competing maybe with Martin Odegaard if you were to use him in a more central area. So where does he fit into the Arsenal picture for you?
It's not immediately obvious, really. Let's be honest. The way we played last season. There's two sides to this, right? There's the soft factor side. I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't like him on that side of things, because we know his backstory, we know what he does on the pitch, how much joy he brings to the pitch, and his technical ability, which I think is really, really high. Watching the games over in the Far East, I thought some of our technical ability on the ball was quite low, regardless of the fact it's pre-season, we've got heavy legs, etc. You're looking for more technicians, and there's the football side of things. You know, I know he's not the same player, but we had a similar problem trying to fit Smith Rowe in once Odegaard was in on the other side. He wasn't quite a left winger. He wasn't quite able to sort of usurp Odegaard in that 10 position, and he wasn't quite an 8. And so tactically, I can see the similar problems, but I almost don't care, because he's a much better player. When the ball comes into his feet, everything changes. Pictures change. People trust him when the ball comes in, so they start to move. And for me, a lot of our creativity is down to the fact of our lack of movement. Why don't you have movement? Because you don't have enough technical ability on the ball, and so you stand and you wait for it to come back to you. When players can beat people, you start to flow, you start to move. I want more of those players in the club, and the manager can work out where they stand.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I've been asked this question a lot over the last week. You know, where would he fit into the picture? For me, it's not about shoehorning him into any one given position. It's about bringing a bit more spontaneity to our attack, bringing someone who plays off the cuff, who's bold, who's brave in the final third. And I think we lack that at Arsenal. And I think by default, when you don't have enough of that, you can go into a kind of more of a structure. And I mean, people might disagree with this, but I always think structures are for defending, not for attacking. You want to see a bit more movement and a bit more sort of bravery. I mean, Nick, where do you stand on the Eberechi Eze thing? Would you have him, and where would he fit in for you?
Mate, I mean, I'd have him for so many reasons. Firstly, I grew up a stone's throw away from Selhurst Park, so, you know, it's not really the thing to say on Inside Gooners, but Palace, my second team, I pay a lot of attention to what Crystal Palace do. And I just think, you know, Clive touched on it there, like, he creates chaos, I think. You know, when Eze picks up the ball, people panic because they don't know what he's going to do. He's got a trick in him, you know what I mean? He's got a great shot on him. He can beat a player. He's got a great pass on him. You know, he's got so many attributes that we need at the moment. You know, we've only got to look at the Spurs game in pre-season. Again, I know it's pre-season and a lot of people are getting carried away, you know, because it's Spurs, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, we struggled to create again in the final third. Like in that, think back to the second half. You know, I know they had a goal, but it was a mistake and they scored a goal from the mistake and blah, blah, blah. But in that second half, it was all Arsenal. But again, similar story to a lot of games last season. We just weren't able to create that final bit of magic. Especially, you know, it would have been amazing in the last, 20 minutes Gyökeres got? In the last 20 minutes to create something for him, bang, would have been great. But yeah, Eze, I think, does that. You know, bring him into the team. He's done it in the Prem for a team that aren't as good as...
Now we're going to take you around all 20 Premier League clubs. Dharmesh, where should we start?
Let's start on A and Arsenal, James. Stuttgart in talks with Arsenal over the signing of their midfielder Fabio Vieira.
Newcastle involved in Europe once again, as we know, at the highest level. And Ramsdale, former club Arsenal, you mentioned them, James, they've already been busy. Might not be done yet. What's happening now with Eberechi? Where are we at with this one?
Yeah, look, first of all, Arsenal, yes, as you mentioned, busy in the market so far. 6 players already they've brought in. Victor Gyökeres, the latest of which joining the likes of Martin Zubimendi, Christian Norgard, Christian Mosquera, Kepa Arrizabalaga, Noni Madueke. Outgoing's probably going to be the focus.